Hi everyone, and welcome to the Ultimate Amazon Web Services WordPress Installation Guide. My name is Michael Shee and I'm a fully certified AWS Solutions Architect, and I work for Cloud Academy and various other online training organizations. If you're interested in reading this spiel about myself, just pause the video and I'll jump ahead. Okay, now there are a multitude of ways to install WordPress on AWS. And in this course, I'm going to outline what I believe to be the 4 most popular ways to currently accomplish this, exploring all the different options available and the pros and cons of each of them. Now, the 4 installation methods that we will be using are as follows. Firstly, a third-party provider on the AWS Marketplace called Bitnami. Then Elastic Beanstalk, which in the next slide I'll go into a bit more detail about. Thirdly, the command line interface. And lastly, a CloudFormation template. After that, we then compare all the different options for each of the different setups possible. And we'll finish off the ultimate AWS WordPress installation guide by showing you how to use Amazon S3 and CloudFront with your new WordPress installation to set up your content delivery network, or CDN, to connect to cloud storage and serve your files to users across a wide network of fast servers all over the globe to ensure the quickest download times and the connection. And as promised, at the end of this course, you will have the ultimate WordPress setup on AWS. Okay, you'll see in front of you now the 4 options that we're going to be going through throughout the course. Just a little bit more of an explanation about them all. Option 1 is the AWS Marketplace. We're going to use Bitnami WordPress, which is a pre-configured, ready-to-run image for running WordPress on Amazon EC2, which is provided by the third-party provider Bitrock Inc. Next, option 2 is Elastic Beanstalk. Now, AWS Elastic Beanstalk is an application management service that facilitates quick deployment and management of cloud applications. The third option is the command line interface, which will show you how to install WordPress on AWS via the command line interface of a running EC2 instance. So you'll need to have a running EC2 instance set up before you access the command line. And the fourth option is AWS CloudFormation, which is a comprehensive templating language that enables you to create managed stacks of AWS resources. So the 4 options all have varying degrees of difficulty, and you can choose any one you want depending on your situation. Okay, option 1 is installation of WordPress on AWS using a Bitnami AMI. And as I stated before, it's a pre-configured, ready-to-run image for running WordPress on Amazon EC2, which is provided by the third-party provider Bitrock Inc. And in my opinion, it's the easiest and quickest way to install WordPress on AWS. So if you're a beginner, I think you're going to really like this way to install WordPress on AWS. Okay, so I'm going to go through step by step on how you do this. And at the end of all the steps, I'm going to go onto a real live AWS site and go through the steps once again. So if you don't follow these steps the first time, don't worry, because we'll be going to a live AWS site and going through the steps again. Okay, so step 1 is we choose an AMI, which is an Amazon machine image. Now, when you install WordPress on AWS, if you don't care where your WordPress installation lives, meaning which region it resides in, then it makes sense to use the cheapest one available. And most of the time, US East, which is North Virginia, is the cheapest. So choose that region unless you have a good reason not to. One of the reasons not to would be if you live in Sydney and you think all your traffic's going to be coming from Sydney, then you choose the Sydney region. Now this would probably be a little bit more expensive, but again, it's up to yourself on which one you choose. If you're not sure, I'd choose US East. Okay, this also assumes you know how to get into AWS initially, and you have an AWS account, obviously. So you open up your EC2 dashboard on AWS and click on Launch Instance. Then select AWS Marketplace. In the left-hand column and in the search window that appears, type WordPress Bitnami. And that's what you see on your screen on the right. I've typed in WordPress Bitnami, and it gives me a couple of choices on which one to choose. As you can see, the two ones displayed are free, and there's a couple of differences between them. I won't go into it now, but when I get to the AWS live site, I'll explain it in a little bit more detail. After you've chosen that, you'll be asked to choose your instance type. Choose, unless you have a reason not to, choose T2 Micro, especially if you're still free tier eligible. Now, if you've only had your AWS account for less than 12 months, you should still be on this free tier. Again, choose T2 Micro, and if you think you need something bigger later on, you can easily just change it. After that, you'll get to this screen, which will come up with your default VPC. And these default settings that you see on your screen now, you should have similar ones. They should suffice. Now, the only thing that I would recommend is clicking Enable Termination Protection. It's a good idea, but the rest can be left as is, hopefully similar to what you see on the right of the screen. Now, if you have a reserved instance that you want to use on a particular subnet, then pick that subnet. Otherwise, the subnet doesn't matter. So let's just go through that again. You can leave your default settings. The only thing on the screen that isn't default is protect against accidental termination. So I'd recommend to give that a tick. Step 4, it'll come up with asking you to add storage. And for our example, the default settings are fine. If you think you're a little bit savvy with volume types and sizes and IOPS, feel free to change any of the default settings. But if you're new to AWS, just keep them as they are. Step 5, it's not really a mandatory step, but you don't have to tag your instance, but you definitely should get in the habit of doing it, hopefully for obvious reasons. So you can call it anything you want, but use name for the key value. So just write name in the key value and give it a value of whatever you want to call it. My first WordPress site. Doesn't really matter, but tagging everything you do in AWS is a very, very good idea, and it's a good habit to get into. Specifically later on, or should I say, sorry, especially later on, when you find yourself with lots and lots of EC2 instances and other AWS infrastructure, and you're not sure what belongs to what, tagging helps a lot. Okay, next, you're going to have to configure your security group. Luckily, this is going to come up. If you've chosen Bitnami, it'll come up with defaults, which is own security group, which is probably the ones you need. So it's port 22, port 80, and port 443. And just to add something there, the other thing to make this secure, I would choose my IP. And this will populate with the IP of the device you are currently on, and SSH access will be only granted from that IP. So I did that on the screen on the right. However, I've blocked out my IP so nobody can read it. But if you just choose my IP, it will automatically know what your IP is on your computer and populate it with that. And the only person that will be able to SSH to this image will be someone coming from your IP. Again, if you don't understand that, I'm going to go through it again when I get to the AWS site. Okay, step 7 is review and launch. So you've done the first 6 steps, which wasn't much. It's pretty simple. It just populates it with the default settings. So now you're ready to launch your instance, but go through it and just check everything again. As you can see there, that's step 7 up on the screen. So review the instance launch. You can go through and look at your instance type, your security groups, and your storage and your tags, which aren't showing on the screen there. But if you scroll down, you can display those also. Okay, so when you launch your image, the next step they'll ask you for to select an existing key pair or create a new key pair. Now, a key pair consists of a public key that AWS stores and a private key file that you store. Together they allow you to connect to your instance securely. For Windows AMIs, the private key is required to obtain the password used to log into your instance. For Linux AMIs, the private key file allows you to securely SSH into your instance. Don't worry too much if you don't understand that, and just choose create a new key pair, give it a name, anything you want, and download the key pair and just save it somewhere. Now you may not even have to SSH to your instance, but definitely create a new key pair, give it a name, download the key pair, save it in a place that's secure for later. And just a note, the selected key pair will be added to the set of keys authorized for this instance. Alright, now we're going to get to the fun part. I'm going to go to the AWS console and go through everything again in real time from the AWS console. So here we are at our AWS console. Hopefully you're familiar with this and know how to log in. So we'll choose from the compute area EC2. I'm in the Ohio region. As stated before, probably choose a region that's probably North Virginia's the cheapest, but if you're concerned about hosting it near where most of the people live that are going to access your site, then pick one of the regions that's closer to you. Otherwise, maybe North Virginia or Ohio seem to be the cheapest. Okay, so we're going to go through once again step by step. So we launch an instance and we go to the AWS marketplace and we search for WordPress Vietnami. Comes up with 2 choices. One of them is multi-site, which we're not interested in. We'll talk about that another day. And the other one is just normal WordPress powered by Vietnami. So this is step 1. Choose an AMI. So we're going to select that one. Step 2 is choose an instance type, and hopefully some of you are still on free tier, so the best one to choose is the one that's going to be free, which is a T2 Micro, which is suitable for a basic WordPress installation, and you can always pick a bigger instance later on. That's the beauty of AWS. You can easily up your instance size to suit your needs. Okay, so we'll pick that one. That was step 2. Step 3 is configure the instance details, and we'll stick to the defaults, except we'll add protect against accidental termination just as a precaution. Then we add storage for step 4, and we're going to leave it at SSD. You could change it to provision IOPS if you know what that means. I would assume people watching this aren't too familiar with it, so we won't talk about that. Magnetic's just an older, slower style of storage, so let's just stick with the default once again. 10 gigs enough. Don't need to change anything here. Step 5 is we add tags, so we'll give it a name. My new P site, whatever you want to call it. Tags are good. Try and tag everything, just so you can keep track of it. Configure your security groups. We're going to stick with the default ones that have been created by the Bitnami group, which gives you access, gives people external access coming in to port 2280, port 22, port 80 and port 443. Now 22 is your SSH, and you don't want people coming in on that, so as I stated before, put your IP in there. If you just click on that, it should populate it automatically with your IP, and you're the only one from your computer that can SSH, and the rest I would leave the same. 80 is just for web access, HTTP, and HTTPS port 443 is for HTTP secure. So if you're going to do any sort of payment systems, you will need that, but just stick with those 3. Okay, finally we review and launch. So check everything, go through it, make sure everything looks reasonably okay. Looks good to me, except I never put my IP in there. I just didn't want to show everyone my IP address, but make sure you put yours in. Instant details, looks good. Storage, tags, all looks good. Let's launch, and we'll create a new key pair because we don't have any. I do not have any key pairs on this region in Ohio, so we create a new key pair, call it my new key pair, or anything else that you want to call it, and make sure to download the key pair, save it somewhere safe, and we launch our instance. If everything you've done correctly, you should see this screen with creating security groups, authorizing inbound rules, initiate launches, and then we get the launch status. And we can go to, let's go to our EC2 console, back there again. We should see the instance now. One running instance, that's good. And there it is, my new WP site, and it's still initializing, so we won't be able to actually get to it just yet. So we'll wait for that to come back. Okay, so I paused the video and jumped ahead about 5 minutes so that you can see now that my new WordPress site is up and running, and it has passed all the status checks, which is good. And the next thing is the most exciting thing. We can actually go and check out our WordPress site. Now you can either use the public DNS or the IP. I'm just going to use the public DNS. You can cut and paste, or if you just right click, you can go to the instance. See what happens. Wow. Okay, we now have a beautiful new WordPress site. How do we log in? I'm glad you asked. Let's scroll down and log in. Under Meta, let's log in. username, password. Okay, we're going to have to work out what our username and password is. So let's go back to the EC2 console. And there's a little tab here called Usage Instructions. Click on that. And if you read through it, it tells you the default server administrator is user. Okay, to cut and paste that. The only other thing now we need is password. The place you find the password, this is very important, is, so click on your instance, new WordPress site, then actions, then instance settings, and get system log. Scroll down to the bottom, pull it right down to the bottom, and then go back up a little bit and you will see setting the Bitnami application password to that. So that, the bit contained inside the bracket, the asterisk, is our password. So we'll copy that, paste it in there. You can remember me if you want. Now once you log in, you can add a new user, whatever you want to do. I'm going to save that. And there you are, you're in your administration part of your WordPress blog. You can add plugins, do whatever you want. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. It's pretty simple. It's the easiest way I've found to set up a WordPress blog on AWS, and the cheapest way. So hopefully it helps a lot of you people out there get a nice, cheap WordPress site up there and running. Thanks for listening.